Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the truly fascinating life and philosophy of Wangari Maathai. We're going to explore how one woman's incredibly simple idea, literally just planting a seed, grew into a massive movement that changed not only her home country, but our entire global understanding of peace. Okay, picture the sheer magnitude of this scene. It's December 10th, 2004. We're inside the stunning Oslo City Hall in Norway. The room is absolutely packed with global dignitaries, royalty, the Norwegian Nobel Committee, the whole shebang. They're all gathered for the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, and a genuinely groundbreaking global message is about to be delivered from that podium. But before we get into the actual ceremony, you really have to ask yourself, how exactly does the act of planting trees connect to the highest award for world peace? I mean, historically, the Nobel Peace Prize went to politicians, diplomats, or human rights advocates who were directly negotiating the end of armed conflicts. So how on earth did a grassroots environmentalist from Kenya end up center stage? To understand that incredible journey, this explainer is going to unpack Maathai's story through these 6 crucial steps, mirroring her actual Nobel lecture. A historic first, roots of inspiration, women at the center, trees for democracy and peace, unlocking citizen potential, and finally, the time is now. Let's kick things off with Section 1, a historic first, the 2004 Nobel Peace Laureate, because this was a moment that truly shattered ceilings. When Wangari Maathai stood at that podium in Oslo, she was the very first African woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. She was joining the ranks of giants like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, but she brought a distinctly new voice to the table. And she didn't just accept the prize for herself, she enthusiastically accepted it on behalf of the people of Kenya, Africa, and the entire world. Her explicit hope was that her presence there would encourage women and girls everywhere to raise their voices and take up more space in leadership. The absolute game changer she introduced to the Nobel Committee, and really the watching world, was this powerful triad. She called it an idea whose time has come. For 30 years, Maathai understood something we were all just catching up to. You simply cannot have true peace without equitable development, and you cannot have sustainable development without democratic space. It's a domino effect, right? Environmental degradation leads to resource scarcity. Scarcity leads to poverty, and poverty inevitably leads to conflict and the collapse of communities. It is all totally intertwined. So how did she figure this all out? That brings us to Section 2, Roots of Inspiration, from Streams to Struggle. Her journey is such a remarkable progression. It starts with a childhood deeply immersed in the nature of rural Kenya. Then she gets this incredible opportunity for formal education, studying in Kenya, the United States, and Germany. This gave her the academic chops to really understand systemic environmental challenges. Armed with that knowledge, she goes back home, and in 1977, she founds the Greenbelt movement. And as we'll see, this grassroots initiative played a massive role in Kenya's 2002 democratic transition, which ultimately led her right back to that Nobel stage in 2004. In her speech, Maathai beautifully recalled the Kenya she knew as a kid. She vividly remembered drinking right from clean streams, playing among arrowroot leaves, and watching tadpoles in crystal clear water. She lovingly called it the home of the tadpoles. And she used this to brilliantly illustrate the tragic, heartbreaking contrast to what she was seeing as an adult. Over the decades, those same forests were aggressively cleared for commercial plantations. The biodiversity vanished, the water dried up, and those lush landscapes of her childhood were just devastated by poor environmental management. Which leads perfectly into Section 3, Women at the Center, the First to Know. Because when the environment degrades on that kind of massive scale, who actually feels the pain first? Maathai realized that rural women, the primary caretakers who actually tilled the land and fed their families, were bearing the immediate brunt of this destruction. These women were reporting a devastating scarcity of absolute basic needs. Commercial farming had replaced household food crops, international trade dictated the prices, and there was zero guarantee of fair income. Women were literally walking miles for dirty water and struggling just to find firewood. The destruction of the environment was actively ruining their daily lives. The solution Maathai provided to these women was brilliantly simple but profoundly effective. Just start planting trees. It was an attainable choice with quick, visible results. And wow, did it work. The Green Belt movement resulted in over 30 million trees taking root. Just to put that into perspective for a second, that is like handing a seedling to every single person in a medium-sized country, planted one by ordinary citizens. These weren't just ecological lifelines, they were economic ones. They provided fuel, food, shelter, and the income needed to send their kids to school. And this wasn't just about restoring watersheds or improving soil, right? As Maathai stated, through their involvement, women gained power over their lives, especially their social and economic position. By jumping into the Greenbelt movement, they became active contributors to society. They found independent income, they built confidence, and they secured a renewed sense of social relevance in their communities. This was true empowerment, quite literally rooted in the earth. But of course, there was a catch. Moving to Section 4, Trees for Democracy and Peace, Symbols of Resistance. Because as the women planted, they quickly realized that restoring the land required something way harder: fighting corruption. You see, you can't have responsible environmental governance without democratic space. So the tree actually transformed into a fierce symbol of democratic struggle in Kenya. Maathai and her followers planted trees at Freedom Corner in Nairobi to protest political imprisonment. During ethnic conflicts, they used peace trees to reconcile disputing communities, leaning on traditional African customs, like the Kikuyu thigi staff, which signaled an end to fighting. All of this immense courage and activism ultimately helped pave the way for Kenya's peaceful transition to a democratic government in 2002. Now, how do you actually get ordinary, marginalized citizens to take on massive systemic beasts like political corruption and deforestation? That's Section 5, Unlocking Citizen Potential, Education for Action. Let's break down her playbook. These communities have been conditioned to believe that because they were poor, they didn't have knowledge, and that solutions always had to come from the outside. Maathai's citizen education completely flipped that script. Step 1, she helped people identify their own localized problems. Step 2, she taught them to recognize how those linked to broader systemic woes like bad governance and climate instability. And Step 3, they were empowered to take action. They suddenly realized they held the hidden potential to become part of their own solutions. Which brings us right to the absolute peak of her Nobel lecture. Section 6, The Time Is Now, A Global Call. This is where she pivots from Kenya to look right at all of us. Maathai didn't just stand there and say, "Thank you for the award." She issued a sweeping, interconnected series of demands to the world. She told leaders they absolutely must expand democratic space. She urged a rediscovery of positive cultural traditions. She challenged civil society to catalyze change from the grassroots up. Crucially, she put industry on notice, saying ecological integrity and economic justice have to be prioritized over profit. And finally, she looked at the youth and offered them a message of hope, telling them they are our future. Her concluding thought was just a breathtaking call to action. She reminded everyone listening that the window to save our life support system is closing. We can't keep exploiting the earth and expect peace to stick around. She said, in the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground. And she made it undeniably clear that that time is right now. So as we wrap up this explainer on Wangari Maathai's phenomenal legacy, I really hope it sparks some inspiration for you. She spent her entire life fighting to restore the home of the tadpoles, a world of beauty, wonder, and ecological balance for future generations. So I'm going to leave you with this final essential question. Knowing that the environment, democracy, and peace are forever linked, what will you do to restore the home of the tadpoles for the next generation?